Hello, hello. It is December 19th, 2024. Christmas is officially on its way. We're less than a week away. Welcome to Scouching Live. Of course, I am Will, the host of the show. I'm joined by my producer, AJ Dodaro. How are you, sir? Do you have all of your Christmas presents ready to go? Because I certainly don't.
Well, I am of Jewish descent,
Right.
but my
Uh,
dad is also Italian, so I do celebrate Christmas. I just wanted to make you feel bad to start. Just to,
I mean, I,
just
I
to
mean,
put that
okay.
seed of doubt in your mind that
All
you
right. Do
had
you
done
have
something
your
terribly wrong.
menorah out? Are you ready to
To be
spin the old
honest,
dreidel?
the way I like to put it is I am Jewish in the
Right.
most ish sense possible because I don't know when Hanukkah is. I know it generally starts around this time, but it moves because it is more like it deals with the Jewish calendar. So it has a start date there, and those calendars aren't completely aligned. So I never know exactly when it is. But either way,
It
I
does
still
move around.
I still have to do my Christmas shopping because I am a lazy ADHD boy that leaves everything to the last minute and
Right.
Well, it's more than I'm a procrastinator. So got to get on that, and I
Yep.
will. But how about you?
I I mean, I have some, and I think some family members pop in here once in a while, so I'm not gonna spoil anything, but
Mm-hmm.
not done yet. Not done yet because much of my family is I'm in a family that is extremely hard to buy things for. I don't know what my family likes at all. I have no idea. Um, but we're working on it. We'll figure it out. We're gonna see what we can find, poke around, and whatever. I don't know. It's I live in a bit of a tough family for Christmas time, but I'm looking forward to the holidays. Again, we have a live show on Monday night for the World Junior Hockey preview, so I'm working on that right up, and hopefully I'll have that done tomorrow. And we're going to be off next Thursday, obviously because of the holidays, but then I'll be away after Christmas, but I will be at apparently, supposedly, both semifinal games at the World Junior Championships this year in Ottawa. So that's going to be a fun day on the 4th, seeing who ends up playing in the gold medal and bronze medal games. That's always going to be a good one. So yeah, really excited about that. I get to hang out with Jordan Millette for a little while. So we get to be, for anyone who doesn't know, we're basically related at this point. It's kind of spooky how similar we are. So we're going to be able to fake being brothers for a day, which I never
Oh,
had a brother. So I'm looking forward to that,
so
you
you're
know.
gonna root for the Ottawa Senators now? Is that on?
No, no, siblings don't have to cheer for the same teams. And I don't think I could. I mean, I don't know. There is a small part of me that does like the vibe of the Ottawa Senators, except for the whole losing thing, which they're not doing as much of lately. But I think they have some of the nicest, except for the numbers and letters on the backs of their jerseys. I think they have one of the nicest looks in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That black and red with the logo, I think it looks awesome. I just wish they would go back to that LA Kings style, like the letters and numbers like the LA Kings have it, the classic sports jersey look, because I thought that looked great on the Senators jersey. But so, I'm halfway on the Go Sens Go train, because their vibe is cool.
Ah,
But anyway, today we're going to talk about a few different things. So obviously, the Scouching rankings dropped on Monday or Tuesday. So if you haven't, you can check that out. I'm going to fetch the link and put it in the chat as well. We had our lovely guest Tony Ferrari on the show, who was a nice foil for my craziness.
mm-hmm.
And the reaction's been pretty good. So we're going to have a little Q&A. If you have any questions about the ranking to this point, or any sort of the players that are in there, or anything you'd like to know, fire them in the chat, and we'll get to them next in the back half of the hour, or the 2 hours, I should say. We're also going to talk a little bit about the trade. Oh, Jordan Millette is in here. Hello, Jordan. But yes, I said halfway on the Go Sens Go train. Go train, get it? Because I'm in Southern Ontario, Greater Toronto area. That's a public transit joke.
Ooh.
Yeah. But we're going to talk a bit about the trade of Justin Barron. I almost said Morgan. Justin Barron for Alex Carrier. And we're also obviously going to do our Q&A on the ranking. But the first thing we need to get to, I think this is a need, but we're going to talk a little bit about Seattle Kraken acquisition Kaapo Kakko of the New York Rangers for Will Bergen and a few picks. I think it was a third and a fifth or something like
Sixth,
that.
I believe.
Third and a sixth. A couple of cupcakes to throw at the wall, Bart Simpson style, and Will Bergen for now Kraken Kaapo Kakko. So is it like is Kaapo Kakko considered a Kraken now? Like every member of the Seattle Kraken is a Kraken, or is every player on the Kraken like a tentacle of the same creature? That's a question I need to have answered by, I don't know, maybe Allison Lucan, a good media person for the Seattle Kraken. Maybe she can help me shed some light on this, because I'm curious, because there's only one Kraken. It is a sea monster. But I guess that also implies like that must have come from somewhere. So there must be Kraken parents somewhere. So maybe they are just a family of different Kraken monsters, right?
This is quite the adventure we're going on.
I mean, we're setting the stage for the topic of conversation here, right? But anyway, we can get right into it. So, Kaapo Kakko is now a member of the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken continue to add to their collection of, what did you call it? Useful guys, solid
hockey players. That is all they do. They just
first line through fourth line. It's just what they are.
And then they have Berkeley Catton, who you recently did a video room on. So go watch that video. Yeah. Good promo by me.
Yeah, exactly. Berkeley Catton video room is out. There's another one coming as well in the near future, so look forward to that. But anyway, so I mean, what are the New York Rangers getting in Will Bergen? I don't think they're getting much. I feel like it's a player contract to hand back for Kakko from Seattle, I should say. I've never really seen a whole lot in Bergen whenever I watch Seattle. I feel like he's kind of a replacement level defenseman there, like bit of skill, but nothing that really, I don't think he's going to fix the Rangers. And I don't think trading Kaapo Kakko is going to fix the Rangers either, because I watched a bit of him before the show today. And I don't think he's a revolutionary pickup for Seattle, right? Like, I don't think, similar to there was another really high draft pick who recently got traded as like a reclamation project. It's slipping my mind. I feel like there was one relatively recently.
We talking last year or last couple of years?
Yeah, like in the last, like, I don't remember. Anyway, point is, like, I don't think Kakko is going to be this like revelation. And, I saw today he was talking about how hard this season has been and how he's thought he hasn't played a ton. Or how he hasn't played particularly well in his opinion this year, which fair enough. I feel like that, when you watch him on the ice, I think a lot of what you see is maybe not necessarily problematic, but it is, I think there's a lot. He's fine, I guess is what I'm saying. He's been fine, and maybe there's headroom when he's in a fresh position with a new environment and a new coach and new line mates. I mean, I'm looking at Seattle's roster right now. I don't know where he slots in.
Bottom end of the lineup for sure.
Like, I don't put him on a third line ahead of guys like Eli Tolvanen and Oliver Bjorkstrand, but the fourth line with a guy like maybe Ryan Winterton or something, I could see him being a better option there, more consistent option there. I think
they tend to move things around. So honestly, you could see him on the second line one game, then you could see him on the fourth line, and then maybe he's on the first line, because Seattle is just filled with players who are slightly above average.
Right. I do wonder where, in my mind, I think, why would Seattle get him, right? Because I don't think it can be just like, well, he went second overall a few years ago, so he must have some headroom left to develop and everything, which may or may not be true. But I think the big thing is, I think about these things of like, well, why would you get him and what is his job going to be? And with him, I mean, watching him, the game, I watched the last game he played, which was against Nashville, I think. And he was playing with Mika Zibanejad and Riley Smith, who are historically not his typical line mates from what I could find. And I think that he's a guy who is a really good example going back to his draft eligible season where he was like this spectacularly productive Finnish player coming out of Finland. I remember watching him in 2019 going like, okay, he's not the fastest guy or the most skilled guy in the world, but he's very resilient. He's calm under pressure, sees the ice decently well, makes plays when then there are guys pressuring him, and he can sort of find his way out of jams pretty well. But the pace of his game wasn't super high. It was more like, to me, he was going to be this pretty quick-handed but really strong on his feet type guy. Like you're a Leaf guy, think like Matthew Nyes, maybe a little slower. Just kind of a sponge guy, absorb pressure, soak things up and make plays. And I think he's kind of okay at that in the NHL. And I watch him and I kind of don't see this guy who is trying things over and over and over again, and he just doesn't have line mates there to finish it. He's kind of that, catch and release the puck at the defensive blue line, hit guys in the neutral zone, move the puck up the ice with possession kind of player who I think could complement maybe a lot of the players that Seattle has on their roster. So, one thing they do, I think, have quite a bit of is some good speedy players, right? Tolvanen, even Tanev is a pretty quick guy. Beniers is a pretty quick guy up and down the ice. Even Shane Wright can get up and down the ice pretty quickly these days. Oliver Bjorkstrand's pretty quick. They have a lot of these guys who can, Jaden Schwartz too, they can move. And Burakovsky as well. Like they have a lot of these, again, like you said, like B plus, quality B level guys who are just, they go and they're pretty good. And I think if Kakko can sort of find that role of comfortable under pressure, make good reads and anticipate pressure well and just facilitate things a little bit, I think with the guys around him, because I think he could do a lot better, right? Like I look at guys like he was on the ice with Riley Smith and Mika Zibanejad. I did not think he was the worst player of that trio.
Well, that's because Mika Zibanejad is not good.
Yeah, he every game I've seen of Mika Zibanejad this year, I'm going, this is a problem. Like he does not look like what is it, $8.5 million something player, something like that.
Something like that, and it's until 2030.
And it's that is a problem, And so I think it is. I mean, this is also not the first time that the New York Rangers have kind of skewered a player, like they did it with Barclay Goodrow, orchestrating that kind of fake waiver claim situation with San Jose, where they were basically like, we're going to trade you, but if you don't want to get traded, we're just going to put you on waivers, and the Sharks are going to pick you up because they want you. And they kind of orchestrated this whole thing. And now with like trading Trouba, the captain of your team, I mean, obviously there's a little bit more context there than just, skewering Jacob Trouba on the way out. But like now you have Kaapo Kakko, who earlier on in the year was like, earlier on in the year, Kakko, or this week actually, was saying, like he kind of poked at the team a little bit. Like kind of poking at the coach a little bit and kind of spoke out a little bit, which I think players, doing that, maybe not always the best choice, but like sometimes, I mean, look at the Rangers.
Well, he got scratched, right?
He did.
It was a comment about, I don't think I'm the worst player on the ice. And
he's not
wrong.
He's not wrong at all. Like, I don't think he's like the reason the Rangers are like holding themselves back in a way. Like, it's not like Kaapo Kakko should be a top line player, right? And they're just holding him back and all of this stuff, and he's frustrated. But he is not wrong saying that there are worse players on the team that probably deserve to be sat down, for a bit, that aren't him. And I think that's so. Anyway, I just looked, and Zibanejad is $8.5 million until 2030. Yes. So that's insane.
Have fun. That is a massive anchor.
Like I feel like that the Rangers, I don't like to look at NHL teams and go, because I've seen a lot of people commenting like, oh, the Rangers are like the fall from grace from the Rangers. It's happened so quickly and blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of going, well, yeah, but like I don't know. Like, we were kind of critical of the Rangers last year.
Yes.
They were very goaltender heavy, and
Yes.
watching them, you kind of just, they're very power play focused, and that's not a sustainable
For
formula,
many years, they have been a
and they did that.
team
Yeah, it
that
goes back to
just,
Lundqvist
that just gets by on good special teams, takes
right,
advantage of weird bounces,
and elite goaltending.
and elite goaltending.
Elitist of the elite goaltending for like a decade straight or more,
Yeah.
honestly.
And they've got my favorite goalie ever now, and they've
Yeah,
signed him to a massive deal that he deserves because he is
yeah.
the SAR.
The Rangers have had an incredible run of goaltending since I was born. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Mike Richter was great. They had, I mean, there was a couple of years there between Richter and Lundqvist where I think they were kind of mixed, but Lundqvist and then Shesterkin, and it's just been crazy. But so I feel like I don't think the Rangers are in such a terrible position that they're going to be awful indefinitely, but they've dealt themselves a pretty not great hand, right? And I feel like trading Kaapo Kakko is not the answer that I thought that, like that I don't think that's going to fix anything.
It won't.
But like, I look at who's actually on the roster and I go like, Adam Fox and Keandre Miller and Artemi Panarin,
Mm-hmm.
and like, they have players, right? Shesterkin, right? And so it's like, I kind of am at a loss, honestly, when I look at the Rangers. I kind of go, this doesn't seem like the answer, sorry, I'm just pulling up their roster to see who else is on the team. But, like Alexis Lafreniere, we were complimentary of him last year because I at least felt like he was sort of finding a good role of that guy who,
he's just a complimentary scorer, right?
like a really good, more physical guy now, complimentary scorer who, oh, by the way, total side note, because I just saw it pop up, Kaapo Kakko, also part of the scores more goals than assists club in his draft year. So that's another one to put on the list of maybe someone who might not be.
Hey, what do we call that around here?
What? The Peter Bondra Club?
Or like the Chichu effect or something like
right,
that.
the Chichu effect, I think is what it was. But anyway, Elite Prospects is so slow. Okay.
The website, that is.
Yeah, the website. But yeah, I mean, like, you look at the roster up and down, you kind of go like, they're not that like bad on paper, right?
Right,
like,
but do they have guys who really go out there and push pace?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think they have. I mean, Philip Hedl, I think, could be that guy. He just hasn't had a stretch of healthiness.
Yeah.
Chris Kreider finally has an assist, so there's that.
Right, but he's fast, but doesn't really use it.
No.
Like, there are times where he'll drive the net at a breakneck pace, but like, he doesn't really do a whole lot in the offensive zone other than like tip pucks. And he'll play around in the defensive zone, but it's mainly him throwing hits from what I've seen.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, the Rangers are a team that seems to be built for an era that's not conducive to winning hockey these days. Like, there's a lot of slower, more physical players on this roster, and there's a real heavy lean into really physical play, right? Mm-hmm. They've elevated Will Cooley into a huge role. They have guys on the roster like Braden Schneider, and I mean, I like Keandre Miller. He's been pretty useful, but like Ryan Lindgren is also another very physical first player.
But I also feel like
Matt Rempe mania was a thing, and he's still sort of kicking around, I guess. But anyway, what were you going to put out there?
But I also think that this team's just not been good, even when they won the President's Trophy.
Right.
Like, there are times where I have turned on games with the former Arizona Coyotes, all right, against the New York Rangers, and they're getting like double outshot, and they're up 6-5, barely holding on and finding a way to win.
Yeah.
I really feel like this team has benefited from insane luck. Like, insane luck, because they're just good on the power play and excellent at at penalty killing, at least in the last couple of years. And they were a team that used that to win and do well in the regular season. But
Yeah.
like, they don't have guys who are going to go out there and just get the puck and take it up the ice at 5-on-5. Like
Yeah.
they
And that's
really
true.
struggle. They really
Yeah.
struggle that way. Like Artemi Panarin is probably the one guy who can do it, but he's not the fastest guy in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's up the middle, right? Like, it's the whole play and the players you have up the middle. And like, it's such a good example of why I think you and I agree on players like Marco Rossi and Oliver Moore and Berkeley Catton and all of these guys who, up the middle of the ice, they command possession and they move the puck really, really well, right? Like, watching Mika Zibanejad, I go, he doesn't have the juice anymore. Like, I just don't see a guy who controls possession on a line, right? Even Vincent Trocheck, I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But like, I think on a cup contending team, Trocheck is what, a really good third line center that you have. Like, that's kind of where I come down on. Maybe an okay second liner.
Yeah.
And like Philip Hedl is what, but like, they don't have much of this like juice up the middle, right? This possession play who drives up the ice really quickly and moves the puck quickly. They just don't really have that. And when you look at their roster on daily faceoff, it's like, I mean, yeah, their forward group is a bit problematic, right? Like, Jimmy Vesey's in there and Johnny Brodzinski. Like, Adam Edstrom has played the full season, and I like Adam Edstrom, but like, he's a pretty limited upside guy.
Your mic will.
He's like, Edstrom is huge, but I don't know. So with Kakko, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about more than anything here. I didn't think that he was going to be the guy that gets booted from this Rangers
he's
group.
actually a good, at least a serviceable player on a not so great team with a lot of guys who aren't good, really. Like,
right.
Not good enough. And I think I want to pivot the conversation towards the drafting, because we are a prospect show here. And I think it is a good thing to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pull up their draft history, but I saw Mark Spector tweeted out the first round picks they've had when they were doing not so well, of Anderson, Kravtsov, Kakko, and Lafreniere, and basically going like, you know, and kind of what happened there.
Right.
Where did they move their they moved the link to just accessing NHL draft results on Elite Prospects. That's silly, unless I'm blind.
But like, this is a team that has been gifted players in free agency, essentially.
Yep.
Because Adam Fox, big New York Rangers fan as a kid, and forced his way there. Artemi Panarin went there, right? Because New York's a cool place, and he wanted to be there, right? And so they got kind of lucky to bring in all these guys because they were rebuilding, supposedly, like at the COVID playoff type. Yeah, like in that spot. Like, they didn't do all that well that year. I remember there being talks about trading Chris Kreider at the time and people being mad that he got re-signed.
Right.
So I feel like they lucked into a team that was able to win for a bit while not really hitting on their top end picks. And yes, to be fair, everybody was wrong about Lafreniere being like this really high end player. He's a good player, but it took him a while to get there. Consensus was very wrong on Kaapo Kakko being this player that should have gone second overall. But it's like, come on. Aren't you going to... How have they not been able to get anybody in the past little while with those picks that isn't first overall?
Yeah, and I mean, I also, like, I think it's a really interesting thing, now that we're talking about this, like, to zoom out a little and think about, because you're right, this is a draft-focused show, and, like, so zooming out a little bit, because, like, again, we just put out our ranking earlier this week, and I think people get really caught up in what everyone else is saying without really thinking about the history of the NHL draft literally every year, and how if someone says something outlandish to you, like, it doesn't automatically mean that they don't know what they're talking about, right? Like, what if someone came out and said Quinn Hughes is the number one ranked player in the 2018 draft, right? People would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, how could you put him ahead of Rasmus Dahlin? And look at what Andrei Svechnikov can do, and blah, 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 blah. Like, Quinn Hughes was obviously at the time, everybody was losing their minds over him, rightly so. But it, like, you can look back on it and go, well, yeah, but look at how Quinn Hughes skates around the ice and all of these things. And the concern at the time was his potential defensively. And granted, the first few years of his career, it was a bit of an issue for him, but like, you at least bet on the raw talent and the mobility and the skating ability and the offensive potential and how that can project defensively as well. But like, just looking at the draft history here for the Rangers, right? They drafted Elias Anderson at 7, which was at the time a reach. The names that were still on the board there: Gabe Vilardi, Casey Middlestat, Nick Suzuki, Martin Necas.
You know what's funny about all of that? Good centers.
Yeah.
And
Elias
something
Anderson,
they don't seem to draft. Like, they draft wingers with their top picks. Like, it's almost exclusively wingers. Like, was Elias Anderson a center?
Yes,
okay,
he was.
But like, that's like the one exception.
But he was pretty. I remember watching Elias Anderson that year. I think I had him ranked in the 20s that year or something. I'd have to go back and look. But to me, he's a guy who was like, I could see him being a bottom 6 center in the NHL, like a pretty smart, kind of like a Kaapo Kakko style player, right? Pressure absorber, pretty resilient, moves the puck okay, but not like a top end offensive guy really at all. And I think when you draft a player that high, unfortunately, automatically in the minds of coaches and management and fans, it sets the bar higher. And that, I think, has an effect on players. But when you look at a guy, like at the time, even a Casey Middlestat in New York right now, he's a center who can move, and he's quick and he's skilled. And I think he would really be a huge plus for them right now. 2018, they went and got Vitaly Kravtsov, who, in my opinion, at the time too, was a reach. Who was on the board? The guy for me would have been Evan Bouchard. He went 1 pick later. Imagine the New York Rangers with Evan Bouchard and Adam Fox on different pairs.
Boy.
Ridiculous, right? And it's like, Kravtsov is another example of like why catch and release shooters and really talented finishers are not the guys that I'm super interested in, super high in the draft. He's just, Noah Dobson was also on the board there. So even if you wanted someone still pretty offensive leaning, but still a little more traditional and maybe not as, I don't know what word you would use to describe Evan Bouchard, polarizing, I guess maybe.
I have a hard time describing Evan Bouchard because he is simultaneously so awesome and so horrible.
Yes, he's like no middle ground with him, right? But he is who he is, and he's productive.
An incredibly bipolar player.
Yeah. 2019, Kaapo Kakko. I mean, that was at the time a consensus second pick, right? Like, everybody and their dog had Hughes, Kakko in some order. And I thought that Kakko was going to be this really good playmaking power winger, a guy who can make plays under pressure, project pretty well to the NHL. And in retrospect, to me, it's like, well, number one, maybe the Liga is not the best professional league, considering he was a point a game there. And two, the NTDP that year was ridiculous. Like, imagine if obviously it's retrospect, but if the Rangers went out and got a Trevor Zegras, or the Rangers went out and just bit the bullet and went with Cole Caulfield or something, right? And a guy who had some juice and skill and mobility and intensity to their game, right? Cole Caulfield, yeah, he scores a lot of goals and he's a little small, but like, I think Cole Caulfield brings a lot of energy and pace
especially, right?
And just intensity to the game that I think you need. That sets him a little bit apart from these finishers that I'm talking about, like a Kravtsov, who are more these catch and release type guys, where you give the puck to Cole Caulfield in the offensive zone. It's not just that he gets the puck and shoots it and it goes in the net all the time. It's that he can carry it and take guys with him and open up defensive structures that I think makes him so valuable.
Right.
So I'm imagining the Rangers with guys instead of Kakko, for example. What does Trevor Zegras look like there? What does Evan Bouchard look like there? The
problem with all of this, though, is just like, they don't have pace pushers. And I've said it earlier, but I'm saying it again because I think that is the most important thing with this team that they just completely lack. And if we look at some of their more recent draft picks, like guys like Brandon Othman, guys like Gabe Perreault,
right?
No pace, pace is not the strong suit with these guys.
No.
And watching Brett Berard play for them, who we like. And obviously they've had some good players that they've brought in as well. Like Keandre Miller, I think, is in somewhere from the time that we're looking at as well. But
Yeah.
like, if you can't get players the puck, how are they supposed to score? And that was kind of the way it was, because we watched Brett Berard play and he looked
Yeah.
good. It's just nobody could get him the puck. He just got a chance off the rush and was able to score. And then he kind of did nothing the rest of the game, but he was intense and tried. He just couldn't get the puck. And I feel like with this team, they really need to reset how they play. And every year, I've always thought, okay, well, there's a new coach. They're going to adjust things and make this team a little faster in the way they play. So I've always, after every new coach coming in after one season, I always think they're going to do better. But they never change. Like, I thought they'd be better this year because I figured, okay, more time, and hopefully now they'll be a little bit faster and play a little more intense.
Right. But that's the thing that, like, we've talked about this too on the show before. Like, it's kind of amazing that this hasn't really trickled down to, you see it more often where it's like, oftentimes when you change the coach, it doesn't fix anything. Like at the end of the day, generally, coaches can come in and cause a change temporarily. Like, there's lots of scientific research out there about teams changing their coach. Like, if you have, let's say, a 500 record for 3 years, right, under one coach, you start the next season 1-5, you fire the coach, and then you finish that year, instead of 500, 585. There's an improvement, right? The following season, more often than not, you finish like 470 to equalize things out, right? You end up where you were, because the actual differences on the team, right? Like, what are you trying to get? Like, is a new coach gonna make Mika Zibanejad a player who is worth $8.5 million?
No,
I don't think so.
Not at all.
Is a general manager change gonna bring a guy who, I'm trying to think of, like, you've got Panarin, right? But that's not enough, clearly. And so, anyway, I mean, I think with Kakko, it'll be interesting to see how he does with Seattle. I'm most curious about that more than anything. I think he could be a useful player there. Do I think he's this like steel reclamation project that's going to turn out blah 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 blah? No, I don't think so.
You know what it reminds me of?
Who?
Jesse Puljujarvi.
Sure, serviceable player. Perfectly fine.
The Finnish thing too, right?
Yeah, Finnish. Yes. We also did get a super chat. So Steve, thank you very much for the chat here, saying the Devils might have tried to get him for a crappy defenseman and two late draft picks, make him Hughes' winger, and he could put up 50 points during the rest of the year. I mean, sure, like, I think he could play off of a guy like Jack Hughes really, really well, right? Like, Daily Faceoff currently has Hughes listed with Jesper Bratt and Andre Palat, and I feel like you don't mix that up with a guy like Kakko. But either way, I mean, yeah, like, I think Kakko is the type of player who Seattle can slap on a line with Chandler Stevenson and Oliver Bjorkstrand or something, and I
literally
think
anybody on their roster, because that is what they
any
are.
of their forwards, right? And that's maybe why they went out and got him, is because they don't really, like, they have Brandon Tanev, who's a pretty strong guy, but he really moves. Like, Tanev is pretty quick, and so if they have one of these guys who almost can, like, slow the game down in a good way and just kind of absorb some pressure and make some plays, then I think that could be valuable. Ish, within reason, right? Like, and trading a couple of mid-round picks for him, no problem. Oh, good one. I feel like Kaapo's biggest issue is he lacks finish. That's nice. Good one. But anyway, so that's it. I mean, I think that's it for Kakko. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about that much more than this.
He will be fine. The Rangers
will be fine.
Won't be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the Rangers do from here.
Trade Chris Kreider, really, because you can get a lot, I would imagine, for him, or at least a good amount, because it's not like he's got that much longer on his deal, and he's still a very highly valued player, hence making Team USA, right? Like, even Mika Zibanejad is a highly valued player. I don't think anybody's going to be lining up to take him because he's got quite a bit of term left. But still, like I think you can move on from Kreider and try and start restocking the cupboards a bit and finding guys who can actually push the pace. Because that is the biggest problem with this team is 5-on-5 for years. They have not been very good, and they've been bailed out by goaltending and special teams. So find guys who can play in all situations.
Zibanejad is signed for the second longest amount of time out of anyone on the team that is a skater. Lafreniere has a contract for 2 more years past Zibanejad, but Zibanejad is here until literally the next decade. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty crazy to me.
Does he have a no trade clause, or is it a no move clause?
I don't know. Let's see on Puckpedia here.
But either way, I think we can get on to also, the scouting staff who has now the former New York Rangers
former head of European scouting, I think, or was he the director? Bobrov.
Either way, we're gonna get to the Montreal.
We're gonna get to the Montreal Canadiens. So, the Montreal Canadiens made a trade. They got Alex Carrier from the Nashville Predators for Justin Barron in a 1-for-1. I've seen Barron over the years. So sorry, Bobrov was the director of European scouting with the Rangers. Now he's the director of scouting with the Habs. So there you go. Anyway, so Carrier for Barron 1-for-1. I went and watched a bit of Carrier because I'm much, much less familiar with his game than Barron. And I've been very public since 2020 that I am not a huge Justin Barron guy. I thought, like, some of the metrics I tracked of him that year, like, I don't think I had him ranked because I just saw a defenseman who had a lot of trouble defending. And that seems to still be kind of the case in the NHL. Like, I saw a couple of comments. I always like in these situations going to the subreddits of the teams involved and seeing what fans seem to like. That's a kind of good thing about Reddit is you kind of see fans talking in their own community and what each other thinks of what each other thinks. So you kind of get people going, for example, with Justin Barron, they're like, I mean, this is a guy who's advertised as an offensive defenseman, but he can't score and also doesn't really defend well. So getting something for him, sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that checks out to me with Justin Barron, right? Justin Barron was another one of these guys who I thought when he was in junior in Quebec did not defend very well, transitioned the puck offensively decently well, as long as he was carrying it himself, had some good forward skating speed. But I just didn't really buy that he was a high-end player. And he's kind of struggled to keep a job in the NHL, right? Like, he's kind of been up and down in the lineup, and he's been kind of a guy on a team that just faces chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. Carrier, on the other hand, I don't know why Nashville traded him. Like, I from what I saw of him, he at least seemed like a useful, smart, simple defender. Like, if he were 6'1", 6'2", I feel like he'd be a mainstay in the NHL, but he's 5'10", 5'11", and doesn't score a ton. I think that there's some interesting stuff with Carrier. I think at the very, very least, Montreal has a solid defensive insulator where there wasn't really one before, outside of Caden Gooley, maybe. So I think those two guys now bring a little bit.
You're forgetting about elite right-handed shot defenseman David Savard.
Oh, sorry.
How could you forget?
Yeah, David Savard is there. Now they're elite, basically. Adding Alex Carrier has now made their defense group elite. But in seriousness, I mean, I think it's a step forward to the point where I'm a little bit confused as to what, I mean, the only thing, and I think you said this, like, the only thing I can really think of is that Nashville just wants to get younger.
Yes,
but fair enough.
But getting younger doesn't mean anything if you're not even really going to get better in the future.
Well, and part of Nashville's problem is their defense group. Like, they're not,
but they're also
great.
An older team. But like, you're trading a 28-year-old. Is that really the oldest player on your team you can trade?
Right.
Like, if you look at Nashville, so I'm going to pull them up quickly. Like, they've got a ton of forwards who are over 30 and over 32. Like, Philip
I mean, they've
Forsberg,
drafted a
30.
lot.
Steven Stamkos,
You know.
34. Marchessault,
Yeah.
33. Ryan O'Reilly, 33. Gustav Nyquist, 35. Colton Sissons, 31. Mark Jankowski, 30.
Yeah.
I think I listed like 8 of their 13 forwards.
Yeah. And like the young guys on their team, they have Evangelista, LaRue, who
Parsonen.
kind of is a guy. Who?
Juuso Parsonen, your boy.
Juuso Parsonen. He's all right. But like, anyway. But yeah, I mean, like Justin Barron is cheaper than Carrier. Like Nashville's saving a couple of $1 million a season. But I don't know. I guess Nashville thinks there's upside with Barron that can be explored. I don't know exactly what that is personally, but I don't know. Maybe they think they found something, because Carrier to me is a solid NHL defenseman who I think for Montreal is a good pickup.
Yeah, I think this is a big win for Montreal.
I mean, it's a win. You know, it's a step
fine,
up.
Fine. It's a win.
Right.
To me, winning is always big, because that's just how I
Right.
view it. But
winning is big.
yes, winning is big, but it's a win.
Yes.
And I think I don't get it. I don't get it with Nashville.
Right.
Because, like you've said, this is not a player who's particularly all that good and really has that much upside, other than like the name value and where he was projected to go before, right? Like, kind of riding off that. Where it's kind of weird, because Nashville moved on from Tomasino. Why? Don't know. And now he's in Pittsburgh and he's solid, right?
Yeah.
So, and I want to like Barry Trotz, the GM.
Oh yeah, they traded Tomasino.
Yes,
I forgot about that.
Because I love Barry Trotz, the coach.
Right.
But like, but why? Like what?
Like
what are we doing? What are we doing here?
It just strikes me as if they kind of are like looking. It may or may not be true that this is what's happening, but it kind of seems like they're a team that's being like pulled in a few different directions and doesn't know which way to go. Like they made all of these signings in the offseason. They got a lot older and there's a lot of veterans there and all of that, but they're not good. They're not winning. And they have young players, but a lot of them are not ready for the NHL yet. So they can't be that team that like starts pulling the chute and starts rebuilding for real, because I also don't think that that's what they want to do. I don't think they're a team that wants to rip it down and rebuild and do all this stuff. I think they're trying to do the Rangers thing where they add guys while also getting younger and getting draft picks and trying to stay afloat, but they just seem to be struggling. And so now, again, like the Rangers trading a young guy like Kaapo Kakko, who probably could be a useful player on the team for the next 5 years. They traded Tomasino, who he's a good player. Like he's fine. Mm-hmm. He's a solid NHL player. And they traded Alex Carrier, who's a solid NHL player, for someone who's a big question mark at this point, which, I mean, to me, it's like they're trying anything to make it happen, but as long as it isn't trading the veterans, those established players on the roster who they're really banking on.
But like,
and I feel like the Rangers are kind of thinking the same thing, right? I mean, they traded Trouba, but I feel like there were other circumstances going on there. I don't know.
But like they signed Stamkos to a 4-year, $8 million deal, and he's 34 years old at this moment.
Yeah.
Marchessault got 5.5, and that's a 4-year deal as well. Right? Like they just brought in a bunch of older dudes. And look, I thought Nashville was going to be better this year. Okay. I thought they were going to make I thought they were going to make the playoffs. I don't know if I put them in the actual like divisional spot or in the wild card spot, but I know I didn't have them over Dallas or Colorado.
Right.
But like this team has kind of a similar problem to the New York Rangers. Where is the pace pushing center?
Right.
And I feel like that's a huge problem. You need guys who can push the pace at center, at least a little bit, or somebody else who can do that. Like who pushes pace on this team?
I'm gonna pull up their roster now. I mean, Marchessault maybe, but yeah, there's not much there. Nyquist, but maybe not at his age anymore. But yeah, like it's
the guy who pushes pace on that team is their
Nick
defenseman. It's
Blankenberg.
Roman Josi.
Yeah, Blankenberg and Josi.
But it's mainly Josi. Like,
yeah,
Yosi's the guy who's jumping into the rush and doing cool stuff, always. He is so much fun to watch, and he's still doing it at 34. But, like, this team is very, very old. And they've traded away younger players. Now they're bringing in a younger player, but why? Like, in this case, why? You had at least a solid player who was playing with Roman Josi at least a little bit, because in the game we saw, that's who he was playing with. Like, I just don't understand what the point is in Nashville right now. I really don't.
Well, I don't really know why. First, I don't know why they traded Philip Tomasino, outside of maybe Tomasino going, I'm not going to get ice time with these guys because everyone's 10 years older than me and you signed them for 5 years, so get me out of here.
Yeah.
Possible, right? But, like, they traded Askarov also. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then they acquired Annunen.
And then they went out and got used to Annunen. They have 3 first-round picks this year and 2 second-round picks. So they are in that rebuild mode of drafting, and they've drafted a lot over the last few years. But they also, like, I don't know. It's kind of this weird middle ground. And so is it, like, where do you, I don't know. And so it's like, are you trying, like, I don't know what the direction is, right? Like, you're right. They're an old team who is not winning. They have some big holes in the lineup. They have a lot of draft picks, but, like, it seems like with what they're doing, it's almost like they want to trade those picks for help. Like, because otherwise, I mean, I'm not saying they will, but, like, why make that move? Like, why make these moves and also being bad? Like, they're moving youth, but then they're getting more youth, but then they also have all of these draft picks.
Yes.
And
it's confusing, really.
Right. So I get the feeling they're trying to do both at once, right? I mean, the only thing I think I can give them sort of credit for is, like, look, like, you made a lot of changes to the roster over the last 12 months. Fair enough, right? So you got to, and what are you going to do? Trade Steven Stamkos? Trade Jonathan? You can't. So you kind of have to sit in it, and you got to figure it out, right? I don't know what that means. I'm not paid enough money to figure it out.
Ride it out, honestly.
Right.
It just means ride it out and bring along younger players as you go.
My only thought, if I'm Nashville, is you have to find out who you want on this roster in 3 years. What do the Nashville Predators look like in 3 or 4 years from now? And go, there's nothing we can do about the players that are on the roster. We've already drafted a lot, and in my opinion, they've drafted decently well. So there are players that I think eventually will be in a Predators jersey who I think will move the needle for them in the right direction. But it's like, is the coach of the team the guy that you want there at the end of the tunnel? You know, I think that they've been not
possible, honestly.
It's impossible?
No, it's possible.
Yeah,
like
it's
with
possible.
Brunette. I like Brunette.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that the angle is like, okay, we came into this season, maybe we set the bar a little bit too high for ourselves, but, like, we gotta figure out a way to be more competitive and at least try to be as competitive as we can. And if it sucks because I think there's a lot of players on this team who are going, well, what am I doing here if we're not a playoff team, right? Like, what is Philip Forsberg doing signing until 2030 if he's on a team where they're like, I don't know, we might not be that good after all, you know? Or even a Stamkos. Like, what did Stamkos sign there for?
Oh, it's 4 years. Okay, and Marchessault is 5. Sorry, I misread it.
But my thinking is, like, I guess the pitch that you make to these veteran guys is like, we may not be that playoff team now, but we're going to bring up some of these young guys over the next little while, even though, wow, a lot of their guys are signed through next season, right? Like, yes. Ryan O'Reilly, Tommy Novak, Colton Sissons, Cole Smith, Mike McCarron. Like, to me, I kind of almost take Luke Shen. Like, to me, I almost look at this and go, what if we were to just say, you know what? what we're doing with all of these veterans, it's just not working. So let's just have our veteran guys at the top, guys like O'Reilly and Marchessault and Stamkos and Forsberg, and bring up the young guys and just push them and go, look, like you're the future of the team, so play like it, right? Like, because right now what's working isn't working. So, I don't know what else you can do, because you're not trading any of these guys.
I think you just
right?
sit
Like,
in it. Like, you just sit in it, you
yeah,
lie in the bed, and you just try and make the best out of the situation.
yeah.
So you
Like,
listen
there's
to
not much
offers,
else you
but
can
you
do.
don't do a ton. You just kind of
Yeah,
got to
like,
wait it out. And don't,
it,
because I feel like they're making moves that are making them worse and going to hurt them long term. Like, why? At least not the most, like, not to a significant extent with the Carrier move and the Tomasino move. It's kind of like small subtractions, but
yeah.
no real, like, what did they even get for Tomasino? Because I can't even remember. I'll take.
It was a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, is that more beneficial than Phil Tomasino? No.
No, 100% no.
Is Justin
I
Barron
don't
going to
know
be
what
more
they're talking
beneficial than Carrier? No, I really don't think so. So,
about. Yeah,
are these like horrible blunders? No, they're more like mistakes, really. So just ride it out. Ride it out.
yeah.
Maybe you get a guy like the guy who popped in my mind in the draft this year, who I think would be really fun if Nashville's bad. What if Michael Misa shows up here?
I mean, sure.
Like,
I wouldn't be against it.
or
Like, I'd rather him
or
than Colton Sissons.
or
you
are
know?
Nashville the type of, like, because let's say they have the first overall pick. Let's just so we have everybody
Sure.
available to them.
Yep.
Is Nashville going to be so on brand that they still go Matthew Schaefer? He is your number 1 ranked player. But are they going to stay on that brand
Well, this
so
is
much?
the tricky bit, right? Because you could make the argument for a number of different players. I know that I probably wouldn't make it Porter Martone,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably wouldn't make it James Higgins. Yeah, I get the feeling that a guy like Misa makes the most sense, but saying no to Matthew Schaefer, based on what I've seen so far this year, is very, very difficult, especially when you have Roman Josi in town until 2028, right? Like, that's a tempting thing. But also, you've got Forsberg and Stamkos and O'Reilly and all of these guys who also could help out Michael Misa and be nice sort of guiding lights for him.
Right.
So, I don't know, but they're going to have a good player to pick from. If it's that big of a disaster by the end of the year.
But they need somebody who's going to push pace. Really.
Yes. And both of those guys can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that both of them can. Even Higgins can, but I just feel like Higgins doesn't quite play the brand that they look for. I also just want to say they have $46 million tied up in these guys until 2028 at the least. Josi, Shea, Marchessault, Stamkos, Forsberg, and Saros. Like, that, none of those guys are going anywhere, right? Like,
well, some of them you don't want to go anywhere, really.
Exactly. The ones that you could trade, you don't want to. And the other ones, like, nobody is going to take $7 million of Brady Shea until 2031. And I like Brady Shea, but like $7.74 million for Saros until 2033 is like, they have some serious investments.
And probably is
I'm
worth
not saying
it.
he isn't. Yeah, I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying, like, if you're Nashville, I think you're right. Like, you are stuck with what you have. And so I don't think that is a bad thing. No. But I think that the strategy has to pivot towards really pushing the youth around these guys and ushering in like kind of like how Toronto did in 2016, right? When they had Matthews and Marner and Connor Brown and Kasperi Kapanen and all of these young guys on the roster, and sort of going, look, like Andreas Johnson, for example, was kicking around. Like, it's like they played their young guys with the veterans that were already on the roster, guys like Kadri and Bozak and etc. And they had this sort of mix of like veteran sort of guys who have been there for a while and leadership, and they made the playoffs, right? Like, they got there. They had a supportive, sort of lower expectation that season, and they were the most fun Toronto Maple Leafs roster, I think, in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I'm Nashville, that's kind of the strategy that I have is like, look, we're not going to tank and we're not going to trade everyone who is paid a lot of money because we can't. But what we are going to do is instead of Luke Shen being on our second pair or whatever, right, he is now, we're going to, I mean, I don't know if it's Adam Wilsby or Nick Blankenberger, Mark Del Gaizo type players, but like we're over the next little while going to start pushing guys into bigger roles and it's sink or swim for them, right? It's going to be take things slowly for them, but like hopefully by 2026 or something, when all of these guys are still there, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, Novak, Josi, they're all still signed then maybe by then you have a supporting cast that can offset the sort of financial inefficiency up front. And maybe there's something there. Because right now, it seems like they're kind of just like floundering around, right? Trading some of their young guys, trading a veteran guy like Carrier, but like not getting much in return for anything. So what's the goal, right? Like, what are you doing? So I don't know. I don't know, but both the Rangers and the Predators are kind of in a very fascinating position, I would say, to see where things go. I mean, I don't know. I think Barry Trotz is a smart guy, just like you do.
Yeah, at least coaching wise.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right. Well, do you want to get to the questions? You know, just dig right in.
We can, but I have a bonus topic. You ready
bonus
for this?
topic. Oh, yes, I am.
Is Nick Robertson better than Jason Robertson?
Oh boy.
Hey man. Nick Robertson is undefeated when playing Jason. Yep. Jason has 0 points in, I believe, 4 games, and Nick has 3. And I think he's got 1 game-winning goal in that stretch. So
I'll tell you this.
You know what, man?
I'll tell you this. Jason Robertson in this season has more than half of Nick Robertson's career point totals in this season alone, and this is a down year.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that.
So, I mean, I love Nick Robertson. I love him to death. I think that trading him would be a pivotal error.
You know I'm kidding.
I know you're kidding. I know you are.
Just play into the sarcasm with me.
But I will say, Nick Robertson, I do think it is an interesting like comparison because it is interesting that the two brothers are so different from one another on the ice.
They really are.
They are so different. They are almost polar opposites of one another almost.
Yes,
it's like Kasperi Kapanen and Oliver Kapanen. Like they're completely different players.
But those guys are cousins.
I know they're cousins. I'm just saying family relation. They're very different from one another.
I'm just putting it out there just in case other people don't know. Just in case.
Yes. But yeah, I mean Jason Robertson, I mean, yeah. I mean, it is pretty crazy going from over 100 points to now being on pace for like 60. Like that's problematic. But he's a guy who, if he's not scoring, he's not bringing much. Whereas Nick Robertson might not score as much as you would think he could, but you notice him when he's not scoring. Like he is doing everything in his power and then some, almost to a reckless extent, trying to make something happen.
Yes.
So it's like, which would you rather
sometimes.
have? Which would you rather have? A guy who has a little bit of trouble scoring, you know, I think he's been a bit snake bitten this year. He's doing everything but score. Do you have that on your team, or a guy who can score, but if he's not scoring, he's not bringing much else to the table?
But he's very like he's an elite player when he's scoring kind of thing.
Yes, he is. But Nick Robertson is 3 goals behind his brother this year in 6 fewer games.
And how much less ice time? That's
way less ice time.
That's the other thing. I feel like I'm not serious about Nick Robertson being better than Jason Robertson. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that, okay?
Sure.
But I feel like Nick Robertson would be viewed a lot differently if he played more, because the guy deserves to play more. He is so much fun. He is a rambunctious little bastard, all right? He is great. He goes out there and he tries his ass off. Sometimes he gets knocked off the puck because he's a smaller dude, but he works his butt off to get it right back when he can. And yeah, There are some problems with it. Sometimes he gets knocked off the puck when he's trying to shoot. But he's really, really good. He's a really, really good player that goes out there and pushes pace in a way that teams need. Now, I'm not saying like he's the type of player the New York Rangers or Nashville Predators would need, because you still need to get these players the puck. And Nick Robertson's not a player that can necessarily get the puck himself all that consistently. Like, somebody needs to pass it to him a lot of the times, or he needs to chase it and get to it with speed, right? So I just think this is a really fun player that I wish would get more ice time. And he probably will somewhere else at some point, sadly.
I also love the fact that, like, it's so funny because, like, being in Toronto, you see this a lot. Like, it happened with Timothy Liljegren. It's like, how old do you think Nick Robertson is, right?
22.
He just turned 23, like 3 months ago. So it's like, he's not old, and he's been around in the NHL. Like, he had a 27-point year last year in 56 games. Like, he was productive last year. So it's like they're not this. Obviously, there isn't a ton left in terms of development, but in terms of, like, giving him a bit of a bigger role, you know, seeing what he's capable of when you do play him quite a lot and put him in an offensively favorable environment in a few more minutes, and, like, you know, that era of his career, like, where's he going to be in 5 years?
On the Seattle Kraken.
Because, yes, but 5 years ago.
It's true.
Yes, 5 years ago, he had just been drafted. 5 years from now, he won't even be 30. He won't even be really that close to 30. Like, he's still a kid. So seeing him do what he's doing, it's like, I think you move on from that at your own peril.
Well, I don't think there's any risk of that at the moment, because it seems like this third line's doing well. But I don't want to talk about the Leafs for too long, because I don't want to drag it.
Too. Yes. But anyway, it's an interesting thought.
I know people here don't like the Leafs, okay? So we'll move on. I just wanted to put it out there because it's a fun discussion, at least for a little bit.
Exactly.
All right, so ad read time, Will. Be a good boy ad read and read the ads.
Yes. So we are brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link below or scan the QR code to provide a kickback on anything you buy in the store directly to us, which would make me a very happy guy. It's Christmas time. Buy your family some stuff from Fanatics. We're also brought to you by Puck Preps Hockey to get all your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. And of course, Scouching.ca, which is where you can access our Discord server with exclusive NHL prospect data, insights into the tracked data that I have as well, with subscriber only written content, early access to plenty of things up there as well, and plenty of other cool perks you can check out at Scouching.ca. We also have a merch store, Scouchwear.com. All the links are in the description. You can buy our merch, like sweaters, stickers, tons of cool t-shirts and beanies, you know, so you can keep warm when it's, you know, nice and chilly out, what's the temperature today? It's 0. Okay, got it. 0 degrees Celsius, I should say. You know, and we're also on buymeacoffee.com. So if you want to buy us 1 billion coffees or 1 trillion coffees or 6 billion coffees or 10 Bitcoins, you can do it down there. And then we can, you know, upgrade the digs around here, you know, and we can have a little more dignity. But yeah,
like the video, please do that. It helps at least a little
definitely.
bit.
Yeah. Sub to the channel. I think I looked the other day, like 56% of people who watch our channel are not subscribed. So
bad people.
Tisk, bad people, every
Not
single
actually,
one of you.
But please do it, because it just helps.
I disagree.
It doesn't take you all that long. And
exactly.
Now we'll move on, and we'll stop.
We will move on.
We'll stop pandering.
So again, the back half of our show, as always, Q&A. If you have any questions about the rankings that dropped the other day, or any questions about whatever it is, definitely drop them in and we'll get to them over the next hour. So the first comment we got is from Brad Dickinson Scratched. Again, pre-tournament games for the World Juniors, don't worry about them at all. It is what it is. And I feel like no matter what, Canada's going to have a great team. So he may very well just be resting, because you don't want a guy like Sam Dickinson injured in a pre-tournament game. But I don't know. I don't worry too much about lineup decisions here.
Yeah. Also, they're playing around with their mix, right? Like you want to get
What
other
works?
guys in to see who's good,
Yeah.
who works, right? So he's probably on the team already. They probably have an idea of where he's going to play. Now it's about filling it out with the rest of the guys and seeing who's got chemistry.
Yeah. Willie Vanilli. I like that. I haven't heard that one before. Where would Celebrini rank for you if he was eligible for this season's draft? Probably one. I think he's right there with Schaefer and Misa for sure. I would prefer him to Hagens for sure. I'd prefer him to Martone. Yeah, probably one. Really close to 2 and 3 though on that list, but he was great last year. Schaefer and Misa have been great this year, and I think Hagens and Martone have been very, very, very good. But yes, I think he'd be number one. World Junior Championship predictions. I mean, we'll do a full breakdown on the show on Monday night, so I'll have better takes then. I mean, I do think that Canada has the strongest team based on what I've seen so far. Kazakhstan probably takes the silver. I don't know if they can stack up to Canada. Abzal Alibek can only do so much on his own, and Vladimir Nikitin, he's good, but is he better than Scott Ratzlaff? I don't know.
So who's your actual silver then?
I mean, actually silver, I don't know. I think
then just give your top three. Just give your top three.
I think it will be Canada, USA, and Finland. I think Finland takes home a medal.
Okay.
I mean, the more I look at their roster, the more I go, this is a team that can play Finnish hockey and do well, right? Like they've got guys like Helenius, obviously, but Miettinen, Hemming, Haltonen, Kumpalainen, who else is on here? VT Väisänen is a pretty big kid.
Do we see a 5-man offensive zone or defensive zone breakout?
Maybe the flying I-beam, perhaps. But I mean, I think that the bronze medal, even, you know what? I'm excited to be going to the semifinals because I think Canada is favorited. The only thing I think that will hold them back is their goaltending. Oh, by the way, Scott Ratzlaff won't be there. Carson Bjarnason, Carter George, or Jack Ivankovic will be in net. Forgot about that. But I mean, Canada lost in the quarterfinals last year, and that was unexpected. So this is why this happens in this tournament. But I think that Sweden, Finland, and Czech Republic, I think the U.S. is the best in that group. But I do not automatically think they're going to beat a team like Finland or something. I think if Finland gets a real good goaltending performance from a guy like Rimpinen, they might be able to pull it off, or maybe Sweden with Gidloff. The U.S. has the advantage of goaltending, and that oftentimes is enough in this tournament, right? Augustine and Slukinski are probably going to be the two guys for them. Trey Augustine is fantastic. He's been great with Michigan State for 2 years now. But the Czechs, it might also come down to Michael Hrabal, who is notoriously kind of hit or miss in international tournaments.
He can be great or he can be horrible.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe SHIT,
No. Horrible.
Right, horrible. Right.
Come on, man.
But if they get good out of them, then they're gonna be fine. So I think the bronze is going to be where things get really, really interesting, because I think all three of those teams, Sweden, Finland, Czech, I don't think Slovakia will be there with them, really.
Yeah.
We'll see. Something in that group but that's not uncommon, right? I think this tournament very, very sorely misses the Russians and even the Belarusians, because I think the Russians would have quite a good team this year. And the Belarusians also would have a decent team as well.
And we'll give you more thoughts on Monday.
Yep. Team by team and everything on Monday, so stay tuned. Someone asked for a game tape of Rodwin Dionisio. we can give that a go. Maybe not right now, but a go. I think you're underestimating Borgen's value around the NHL. I mean, maybe, but the Seattle Kraken did just trade him with mid-round draft picks for what is likely to be a bottom end of their lineup guy.
Mm-hmm.
If he was valuable, they would probably maybe like if it was a 1-for-1 with Kakko, but they had to add sweeteners with Borgen, so maybe. I think this was all responses about the guy who's been traded recently. That was a high draft pick. I mean, Savoy. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Savoy's still on that development curve, but
I like
he does. Yeah, he's fine. Kirby Doc. No, I don't think that was it. I might be making something up in my head. I don't know.
I think it might have been Puljujarvi, honestly, because 4th overall pick with the Edmonton Oilers, like also Finnish and just like a fine player, right? Who was over.
Oh, Jiricek.
Oh, Jiricek.
It was
okay.
David Jiricek. That's who I was thinking of. David Jiricek.
Okay.
That's the one.
Well, then throw everything I said out the window. Awesome.
Okay, J Milk is here. Always with the takes. If I'm Gabe Perreault, I'm quaking in my boots that the Rangers will turn me into Nick Patan. Hey, Nick Patan. Nick Patan, future guest on the show, I hope, because he's one of those guys who deserved a better career. But yes, I don't know.
Will's wish list of people to bring
Brad
on.
Hunt, Nick Patan.
Well, send out a feeler. See
Jesse Puljujarvi. I tried to talk to Brad Hunt on Instagram because that's the only social media I can find him on, and he hasn't accepted my friend request yet. So
big sad.
Brad, if you're watching, we love you so much, and we want to talk to you because you seem like a good dude. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Gabe Perreault. I mean, I don't mind Gabe Perreault, but he is a guy who's going to need a pace pusher.
Somebody who can get him the puck.
Yeah, somebody can get him the puck.
I think the big theme of this episode, these teams who lack guys up the middle of the ice who can get other players the puck have problems.
And this is why I have guys like that ranked really high on my list. Because if you don't have him, it makes your life a lot harder.
Yeah, guys like Michael Misa and last year, Macklin Celebrini, who is making everybody's life better in San Jose. And that's why they've been better.
Big time. Which players in this class have surprised you the most relative to your expectations going into the season? That's a good question because there's been quite a few. Michael Misa for sure is one of them. I mean, Eric Nilsson, obviously I didn't expect much from him, but I put him high, and every time I watch him and watch the guys around him on my list, I go, well, I'm not going to bump him down that much more. Ben Kindle, I think, is a really good example of that.
That is Will's certified boy this year.
He's so fun. I don't care what Tony says. I've watched so much Ben Kindle this year, and I just think he's gotten so, even just from the Holinka tournament, I think he's just taken such a big step for a guy playing center, especially too. Mm-hmm. He's doing really well. Yeah, surprised me relative to my expectations. I mean, Ivan Ryabkin on the other side of things has been disappointing. Adam Banak, I think, is a guy who showed a lot more limitations than I expected this year, but I still like the guy. I actually bumped him up one spot this morning after watching someone else. So
he didn't do anything. Somebody else.
Yeah, someone else was a little bit worse than I think he is, and so Banak's at 29 now instead of 30.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I think those are guys. I mean, Victor Eklund, too, has been way better than I expected him to be coming into the season. I thought he was going to be a solid Hockey Allsvenskan third-line guy, but he has become a really good producer there, and he's been really, really solid.
Would it be fair to say that Schaefer has surprised you? Because now he is sitting atop your list.
I mean, yeah, I'm a little surprised that he is that high. I did like him a lot last year, but yeah, he's improved significantly since last year for sure. Also, Jamiro Reber being that productive in the SHL this quickly was not on my bingo card. Clearly, though, so this is with regards to the Rangers, I believe. Clearly, the solution is to hire a new coach every 6 months. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That new coach boost.
Yeah, new coach boost all the time.
Hey, they could have had Chris Knobloch because he was with Hartford.
I do think that it touches on an interesting concept, because I think coaching and the coaching experience is a very interesting thing, because it depends so much on interpersonal relationships and how you manage them. Because really, at the end of the day, your job, yeah, you have to have a good understanding of the game. Um, you have to have a good understanding of the game, obviously, to get guys playing the way that they need to play. And I think you have to have a really good understanding of every single player on your roster, what they bring to the table, what they don't. And I think that who you play with others matters more than almost any sort of tactical approach, I think. And so when I think about coaches and it's like, oh, the coach lost the room or something, I feel like I would be very interested to be a fly on the wall watching an NHL team 3 weeks before a coaching change and 3 weeks after. Like, I think that would be a very interesting experience, because I also believe that part of being a really good coach is being able to dig yourself out of these kinds of ruts, right? Like, the
Mm-hmm.
solution being just change the coach feels like it's too easy, really. Like, it's like, I feel like a good coach should be able to sense when players are maybe tuning them out a little bit or not feeling it with personality wise, right? And be able to go, okay, like, what really is my job here, and how do I figure out how to quote Eric Cartman, how to reach these kids, you know? Um like, how, and I feel like I don't, and I can't speak because I don't know the experience, but like, it would be very interesting to see what that's like and what coaches do or don't do to make that happen. You know, it's just a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting sort of world that I don't experience and that doesn't really get talked about. It gets talked about a lot, but not, it gets speculated about a lot rather than, you know, really what's going on here.
I think you just need to
But
tailor your roster a bit to what your coach, like, you need to have everything in sync in terms of what the
yeah,
identity and vision is and what the coach brings to the
yeah,
table, right? Like with the Leafs this year, and I'm using them as a frame of reference because it is the easiest one for me.
sure.
I hate that Timothy Liljegren is gone, okay? I hate it. But Craig Berube has a style. And it's
Yeah.
a style I like for the most part. I'm not a huge fan of the defensive personnel on this team. I'm not an OEL guy, and I'm not a Connor Timmins guy by any means.
Yeah.
I Will has seen many messages from me where I am bashing them, to put it in light terms. Okay, but Berube has a style, and it's allowed for a guy like Nick Robertson to play a lot more because
Yep.
he wants energy. He wants guys who are like on the back end, bigger, physical types of guys. And like the Leafs play a style of hockey that is not similar to the way they were playing under Sheldon Keefe. They are perfectly fine getting double outshot and triple outshot at times, just so long as they keep the puck out of the net. And then they have the superstar talent in Marner, Matthews, Nylander, and even Tavares sometimes this year, because he's been
Mhm.
phenomenal, to go and score goals. And that's how they win games. And they play uh, a good forechecking game, a much faster game than they did in prior years. And it's working. It's working for them. So you need to
Yeah.
be in sync with the identity of the team in terms of what
Yeah.
you're bringing. And
Well,
so,
that's, yeah, I think that's a huge factor, is like organizational resonance, I guess you could call it.
and it's also
Like,
it goes back to the stuff you talked about with scouting, right? Where
yeah.
when you have a big list compiled from a bunch of different scouts in a bunch of different regions, granted, you might be saying these are the types of players we're looking for, but you need your brand of hockey kind of needs to be in sync. Like things need to line up.
Yeah.
Where I think, because I think we've talked about this publicly, where you get all these like lists, these like all these public draft lists, where
Mhm.
it doesn't seem to make sense necessarily because a team of people have put them together. and it values things all over the place, right?
Yep.
So being in sync is huge.
It is. And I think I always go back to something that Lou Lamoriello said years ago. Like, I remember him saying this. And I think I do believe that Lou Lamoriello is genuinely a really, really good hockey mind. Like, I think in terms of being a manager, like, I don't think he's well equipped for the post cap era. And I think he's been around way too long. But I think he was, in a sense, a trailblazer in a lot of ways. And I think he was a huge reason why all of those New Jersey Devil teams were so successful for so many years. And one thing he always went back to was, I value, like, he sees running a team, like whether it's the staff or the players or whatever, as like an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of need to know how many violins to have in an orchestra, and how many bassoons to have in an orchestra, and how many flugelhorns or whatever to have in an orchestra, right? Like, you need to have that knowledge. And I think that a lot of people confuse that for having a diverse set of opinions, right? And I feel like there are a lot of situations where it's just like, well, if we have a bunch of scouts who just all agree in one certain direction, then we're not doing it right. When in reality, it's like, well, you almost need to, like Tony and I, for example, we don't agree on everything at all, but we at least have a unified vision of what the game looks like at its best, and like what we would want to assemble. So like, I don't just blindly look at Tony and go, well, I trust him more than me, and we're the only legitimate opinion, what I'm the only legitimate opinion out there, and whatever. And he's the same back to me. But we at least, like, it's much easier to sort of discuss these things and come to an agreement, other than, as opposed to someone out there who's like, so and so's not going to work because they're 5'8" and there aren't any 5'8" players in the NHL worth playing, right? And it's like, how do you, is that an orchestra? In my opinion, no, right? And in the other person's opinion, they might look at me and go, this guy's a bit of a jackass, right? And so is that and that's not a healthy dynamic. So when it comes to like resonance and having everyone sort of in agreement of like, here's what we want to look at, here's how we want things to go, and we can all agree and work towards that ultimate goal, then yeah, I totally forget what the original question is. But anyway, like, you have to have a coach willing to buy into that as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's just, I'm losing my train of thought here, but the point is, the coaching boost is real, but it's not, I've always been very curious about that side of the business, and the coaching side of things, and how that dynamic changes, and what coaches do or don't do to try to salvage it and get on. Cause like, at the end of the day, the job is simple, but it's very difficult to do very well. Right. So it's very interesting to me. So what did you think of the Jiricek trade? I mean, I thought Minnesota gave up quite a bit for David Jiricek. I think Jiricek is fine. I think he could be a solid middle pair NHL defenseman. I think we both kind of liked what we saw, but he's not really there yet.
I would say I didn't love what I saw, but I can see potential.
Yes.
I think there's a player there that needs to be nurtured quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I think they did give up quite a bit, but it's Minnesota. Like, they're doing really well. They've drafted a lot over the last few years. Have they drafted incredibly well? I don't know about that, but they've drafted well. And I think that there's going to be plenty to work with, whether or not you have those picks. And
there's some good young pieces on that team. There's
player.
some really good young pieces on that team.
Yeah, there are. And they're doing the Nashville, what Nashville should do, right? They have these veterans, they have these older guys that are at the top of the lineup. They have like a Marc-Andre Fleury in net, but they have their young players, like Marat Huznadinov. Yeah, he doesn't have like 30, he's not having a 40-point season, but they're giving him reps. They're letting him play, and he's, I think, played decently well. There just hasn't been much production on the table for him. But it's like they're putting these young guys in an elevated position. Marco Rossi is their first line center, and it's working. So that's the kind of environment that I hope like a team like Nashville might be able to capture a little bit more. But yeah,
Noted
the Jiricek
goon.
trade, I think it's a nice pickup for Minnesota.
Marat
And
Kuznedinov, who killed Jesper Boqvist last night.
yeah, I went and looked at that. I didn't respond to your message, but I went and looked, and yes, that's what he does. Someone mentioned Slafkovsky for Byfield 1-for-1. No. No, I don't think the Kings do that.
No.
The Habs might do that, but I don't think the Kings do that.
It's weird with Byfield. I wish he got played more consistently in a top 6 role because he just moves around the lineup all the time.
He does. Yeah.
Just play him consistently, please. I know the Kings are doing fine. Like, I think they're in the playoffs right now, and I think they might even be comfortably in the playoffs. But, like, I think Quentin Byfield still has a lot more to give if they just played him more.
Yeah. Here comes our graphic designer, Ray Bro, fresh off of his typo cut and Potter, which neither of us caught on the graphic for the ranking this week. But anyway, retools never work in the NHL. The LA Kings are going to be the Rangers or Nashville in a year or two. I mean, the Kings kind of walked themselves into a tough spot doing things like, even giving up on Dubois, but like trading Villar, like the Dubois trade in the first place.
You're also just an LA Kings hater for whatever reason.
That's true.
Even though your team beats them every year in the playoffs, like you hate them.
Exactly.
You told me yesterday the only reason you were wearing a Leafs jersey in that clip of you skating was because you didn't want to wear the trash that is the LA Kings jersey. Okay, so I know your biases, Ray, and I'm exposing you. Just like I exposed you as a Leaf fan.
Right. Austin, what's going on, mister? Been a while. Loved your rankings, but I was shocked that Nathan Beam wasn't anywhere to be found. Any reason why? I mean, there are reasons. I think with Beam, it's like, I don't know what he is in the NHL. I think he's a guy who doesn't really have the jam. He doesn't really have that intensity level off the puck, especially, that I think you need to have, especially for a guy who I don't see as necessarily like he can compensate for that with his skill level or his speed on the puck or anything like that. Like, he sees the ice really well. I think he's a smart kid. He gets up the ice okay, but he got off to an extremely hot start that I think just did not make a whole lot of sense, and he slowed down quite significantly, and that makes more sense to me. He's a guy who, again, I think he's smart, and I think he times his passes really well around the ice, but I don't see him as a very resilient player under pressure that much. He's not that necessarily that quick. He's not necessarily the most skilled guy in the world, and I just feel like his junior career could be very good, and especially as Kamloops gets better, but I don't know about his, like, the pro upside there. And I feel as well with Beam, it's like there are guys that I've seen a lot who I feel like if I had a second round pick at 40th overall, I would be extremely excited to draft. And then Nathan Beam goes off the board at 46 and I never get a chance at him anyway. So it's almost like it doesn't really matter, because guys that I have significantly, like am I drafting Nathan Beam or Eric Nilsson? I'm taking Nilsson every day right now. And maybe I regret that in 5 years, but I'm pretty sure I take Nilsson every day. And I feel like Nilsson at this rate might go a round later. So it's like, it almost doesn't matter. What do you guys think about the Sharks? They stink, and everything they do is bad. They're terrible, and they deserve to be folded.
Nope. Disagree. Love the Sharks. Get out of here, Will.
We love the San Jose Sharks. We love them. They're
unique color scheme. Awesome. My favorite California team. Always will be. Sorry, everybody else who likes California teams, but green is my favorite color, even though I wear blue all the time because of the Leafs.
I mean, I don't like how the Ducks are running things now, but I like that. I still can't get over the movies and the eggplant and maroon colorway.
Okay, Mr. Nostalgia.
I can't do it. I just can't get. I love the show. Actually, no. Honestly, it's a tough discussion because Artur Zerbe was a San Jose Shark when I was a child, and I cannot betray the guy who helped get me into hockey in the 90s, but also I think stabbed Toronto in the heart collectively in 2003 by being 5'8" and stopping every freaking puck the Toronto Maple Leafs shot at him in a conference final. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. So we love the Sharks here, though. I mean, I think they're doing the right things. They're on the right track. I might tweak the way they draft a little bit here and there, but it's not a big deal.
And there's a question exactly about that a little later that we'll get to.
Yes, we will. But yeah, we're supporters of the Sharks and what they're doing. We love Macklin Celebrini around here. William Eklund was my top rated guy that year. I think
where they picked him, because Beniers was your top guy that year.
Right. He was number 2 though. Number 2, and best player when they picked him. What are the Pittsburgh Penguins, and why does this team make absolutely no sense? Your guess is as good as mine.
I can answer this.
Yeah, go.
They're a team in transition. That's what they are, and I think they make perfect sense, really. They're just a team that is doing what I'm saying Nashville needs to do, but failing to do it with Nashville, that is.
Right.
Pittsburgh is just kind of standing pat and adding guys who are younger to fill out their lineup. Bringing in Tomasino, I liked it. He's a decent player, and I think he's got a couple of points now already, which is good. They brought back P.O. Joseph, which, sure, cool.
Sure.
Why not? Break up the brothers, even though you sent them there in the offseason. But it's like, I look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they're just now starting to usher along guys in. They don't have a ton of tremendous talent that they can bring into the roster and really spice it up with, but they've got a lot of older players who aren't worth their contracts, aside from Sidney Crosby, who somehow manages to always be incredible.
Yeah.
God, I love Sidney Crosby. He's such a great player. But like Malkin, he's not worth it, but it's Evgeny Malkin. Chris Letang, he's not worth his contract, but this guy's won you 3 cups. Now Erik Karlsson, but at the same time, that trade did open up more cap space than they had before. So at some level, even though Erik Karlsson is with that team as a result, and they probably could have done better in terms of managing their cap and finding ways to move out money, like, I think it's fine. And they'll eventually get back to being a good team. It just takes time, and they just need to find guys who can get other players the puck and push
who do
pace.
they play who do they play tonight? The Nashville Predators. So,
hey, nice well, the Predators beat the Rangers, so.
Yep. Okay. Say Lafreniere was drafted by the Kings and Byfield by the Rangers. Who would have been better for the two? I said it at the time. I swear to God, you can go back and look. I said that Byfield on the Rangers made more sense than Lafreniere did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Byfield would have made a fantastic New York Ranger, and him up the middle of this team right now with the speed of his game and the up and down intensity and the defensive ability that Byfield has. I mean, I like Lafreniere with the Rangers, but it took a lot of pulling of teeth to get him here. And I feel like Byfield just fits what they are so much better.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Byfield's almost a year younger than Lafreniere, right?
He is basically a year younger. Yeah.
Like 9 months, I think. Something like that.
It's like 10 or something. Yeah.
Right. So like Byfield's on the younger side of things.
Yep.
Anyways. And I feel like, because he is a big boy, that they could play at center, it could have been really, really good. And
and Lafreniere with the Kings, that would have been awesome. I feel like he would have so much fun there, but anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's it. You didn't interrupt me.
But the point, so the point is, like, I remember at the time, I think I was the only person out there who was like, I feel like these two are kind of more comparable than people are thinking. And I feel like I in my report kind of outlined some concerns I had with Lafreniere when everybody was talking about him like he was the next big thing. But yeah, I mean, with Byfield, I feel like he would have fit the Rangers way better. And here we are, but what do you know? Why is Fabian Lysell a draft bust? Because he's small and Swedish. That's it.
Why do you comment this every time? Look. I appreciate all of your questions.
Just not that one.
No. I actually kind of appreciate it because it means somebody's trying to get a rise out of me, which is what everybody did when I was in school. So I get it. I give a reaction.
Yep.
And I'm doing it now. So thank you for your comment, and please like the video for the trouble that you've caused me. Okay, please. That's all I
Oh,
ask.
boy. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think the Sharks did the right thing by taking Dickinson over Zeev Buium? No. And having just seen Zeev Buium a little bit here and there, I still stand by that. I think Zeev Buium is exactly the type of modern defenseman that can score
He
at higher
rocks,
levels.
man. Oh,
He
he
absolutely
rocks.
rocks. I think his defensive game is a little bit better than it was last year in terms of monitoring rushes and not overcommitting and being a little bit more explosive. I think that's the key thing for him to develop is that first couple of steps of quickness, that ability to jump on loose pucks a bit quicker and move play along a bit quicker than he does. Dickinson, I mean, I really like Dickinson. I think he's fine. I think he's got some really nice finishing ability and his rushing ability is pretty good, but I just think I had Buium quite a bit higher, and I feel like Buium is just a much more projectable style of offensive hockey that I love to death. And we'll see. I
One
don't
of the
know, but
things that Tony brought up to me
yeah,
about Sam Dickinson is he's kind of like he plays a system game, even though he has the talent
yes,
to be beyond that.
yeah,
But even his mindset is still, and because Tony's talked to him, like still very much
right,
a system player. Where a guy
yep.
like Zeev Buium is just a wizard.
He's just a cowboy. He's great. Um, I mean, I don't think it was a mistake taking Dickinson, but I would have been pushing for Zeev Buium quite a bit harder, I think, if I was on the scouting staff there. If the Habs draft 5 and 18th, looking at their prospect pool, who do you take? Boy.
So it would depend, but I imagine the answers.
I mean, at 5, I would take whoever is like they have a lot of wingers already. I think from the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be so hard to say no to a Victor Eklund or something there. Like, I'm assuming the top 4 is going to be Schaefer, Misa, Higgins, Martone in some group. And from there, I would probably push for Eklund pretty hard, and I feel like Habs fans would really like Victor Eklund.
Oh, I just had a thought.
What?
So if the Habs draft 5th, does that mean Roger McQueen?
Well, that's the thing, is Eklund, like, they have Bobrov there, and Bobrov looked at, like, Logan Cooley and said, you know what? We're going with Slavkovsky. I mean, part of me wonders if McQueen is their guy there at 5. They went with Reinbacher. I don't know. I think you might be sniffing around there in the right area, and he's a center.
But more to the question, it's like,
yeah,
the Habs really could use another center.
They could.
Because Christian Dvorak ain't cutting it. He just ain't cutting it.
I mean,
but so it's tough. But like, if you go best player available, assuming the consensus top 4 goes,
yep,
it's got to be Victor Eklund, at least based on your list, Will. Because I can't comment because I do not have a list.
Yeah, I mean, I love Victor Eklund to bits, but they do need, I think, a high-end center. The problem is that the next best center on my list is Cullen Potter. And that's a guy who I think would be a tremendous Montreal Canadian. I think he would be so much fun. And I think he does bring what they need. So we'll see how his back half is, but that is very unconventional. And I think at 5 is pretty risky because of how good Victor Eklund has been this year. Jackson Smith is the guy I have at 6 as well. I would consider Jackson Smith there if I'm Montreal, but you have so many young defensemen already. I mean, they just traded one. So, and they traded another one actually in the offseason in Jordan Harris or early in the season. So maybe there's an appetite for another young defenseman. And I don't think a guy like Xhekaj is a long-term solution for a young defenseman there either.
Honestly, I feel like if you have the 5th overall pick, you can trade down. Like
sure.
not too far back, but like if you find a team that's like, I don't know, in the 9 to 15 range, and then get another pick as well, kind of thing, or some
Yeah.
other assets, like why not do it? Because there's going to be some decent players there, like Cam Schmidt for 18
Yeah.
potentially, guys like that.
Yeah.
Where's Lyndon Lakovic going? Like projected,
Middle of the first round, he's ranked ish. Like Lakovic, if he's
Carter
there,
Bear.
Carter Bear would be a fantastic hab. I think, yeah, like if I'm Montreal, I mean, at 5, it would be very difficult to say no to Victor Eklund, and you just try to find a center elsewhere. And in the middle of the first round, if you get a Carter Bear, I think you're laughing, and I think those are two guys that you can win with. But 18 is really hard because there are 17 names that go off the board, and it's December, and I have no idea who's going to be available. But I keep going back to Cullen Potter in my head of like, I just love him so much. And I feel like the speed and skill combination up the middle of the ice and the finishing ability, like he just brings so much offensive potential to the table. And I think his defensive game is even getting better this year.
So is this going to be your new Teddy Stiga for this year?
It may very well be, right? But I still stand by my thought experiment we outlined on Monday or on Tuesday and in my ranking, right? What if Logan Cooley went to college as a draft eligible and played third line minutes for the University of Minnesota, like as a center? I don't know if he'd be more than a half a point a game, right? And we look at Logan Cooley and go, geez, like he might have, if you think about it, he probably should have gone first overall, right?
He should have. He's so gross, man.
So
the goal,
yeah,
the Sergachev goal he set up in overtime.
Yeah, that was awesome.
God. And
yeah,
he's just,
awesome.
Dude, he's just moving around the ice so well. Just one of my absolute favorite players to watch in the NHL.
Yep.
And
100%.
As soon as I saw him in 2022, I'm like, oh, I love this guy. I love this guy.
100%.
And I will never stop.
Adam Zadlitsky for MVP of the World Juniors. I mean, he's going to be fun, man. He's going to be zipping and booping and bopping and hitting and just taking a dump on as many guys as he possibly can
and
for the whole tournament.
Almost making an awesome play.
And almost scoring points. Yeah, he's going to have so many almost points. It's going to be great. But I'm excited to see him on a big stage. I feel like he'll get some eyeballs on him. I honestly feel like he'll be one of those guys in the World Juniors that people go, who's this guy? And then they go back and watch him in the OHL and he throws hits and he plays hard and all this stuff. And they're like, all right, let's use a 6th round draft pick on him. Who knows?
That was kind of my reaction with him when we went to the Brampton game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, who's this guy? And then the next player, like, see that guy over there? What is he, number 91? I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy almost scores points all the time. He just comes so close.
Yep. Well, he's scoring points now, I think. I think he's over a point a game.
Oh, hell yeah. Good for him.
I'm going to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's got he's a point a game. He has 15 goals this year. He's on pace for almost 40 goals. So go him. Good for him. All right.
We got a statement next.
Zeev Buium breaking all points scored by defensemen at the World Junior Championship. Book it. Okay, Felix, go. I mean, Felix, I know Felix very well. We go way back. We had lunch together once. It was fun. It was very cute. But Felix is a Norwegian guy, and I think he's just really upset and trying to cope with the fact that Norway pooped their pants at the Division 1A tournament and got beaten by 2 teams they probably should have beaten in Denmark and Austria. But it's okay, Felix. We feel you.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for you. And you're a very valued member of the community. Which coach would be the best coach in terms of playing style for each of the top 4? Jeez. Okay, well, let me just do this then, because this is probably a better way to do it. So if I run a tankathon and the top 4 picks, the top 4, who should they? Okay, so I just ran one. It came up Nashville, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose. So if I am Nashville, my hunch is that you go with, I mean, I don't care. Flip a coin, Schaefer or Misa. I'd probably go Misa, but that's a close call.
Mm-hmm.
So if Misa's off the board, Anaheim, I feel like Anaheim with Schaefer makes sense because they've drafted guys like, but they have a lot of young defensemen. They've got Zellweger and Minchikov.
They got a lot of zippy boys, but you know who?
Martone.
Yeah, it's going to be Porter. It's going to be Porter.
I could see Martone there for Anaheim. Yeah. Chicago, I think Chicago drafting Schaefer at 3 would be a steal. They need defensemen, I think. Like, they're young defensemen that they have, like, they have a lot of young defensemen, but I don't think that any of them are anywhere close to Schaefer's level. And just looking at like Levshinov, Rinzel, and then they have like Nolan Allen, Ty Henry, Ethan Del Mastro. Like, I very, very easily am looking at a guy like Schaefer at 3, assuming that's how it goes. And I think that those guys, I think, fit what those teams are looking at, and that leaves James Hagens for San Jose, which I also think fits what they're trying to go for.
Yes,
which, like, and this is what
that guy
I mean,
with Will Smith.
Yeah, like this season, man. Like this season, if you're a bad team, like whatever happens in the lottery, you're gonna get a swing at a pretty good player, right?
Or do the thing that New Jersey did, draft the brother.
The brother?
Yeah. Eklund.
Oh yeah, draft William Eklund, Victor Eklund. Yeah, I mean William Eklund's brother, maybe. Man, saying no to James Hagens though, that's
it wouldn't. I don't think they'd say no.
I think there is an argument, but I don't think it's a winning one that you go with the brother just because he's there. Then that leaves Buffalo with James Hagens at 5 in this simulation, which would be kind of very. I mean, that's what Buffalo kind of needs, but based on how things are going in Buffalo, it doesn't seem like that's the greatest environment for a player to grow in. Then Montreal came 6th, so who knows? But I mean, I think in the top 4, as you mentioned, like Andrew Brunette with a guy like Michael Misa, I think that fits. Anaheim with Porter Martone. I mean, Greg Cronin seems to love guys like Martone, and I feel like that would make sense.
They definitely have a brand, right? They at least have their identity.
Yeah.
Do I agree with it? No, I don't think it's going to win. But they're at least consistent.
Chicago has a new coach, and I don't know what to think about that at all, so who knows? But I think if you are Chicago and you have an opportunity to get Matthew Schaefer, it's probably a good call. And San Jose, I mean, who even is the coach in San Jose again? Is it it's not David Quinn anymore.
No, it is not.
It's who is their coach?
I'm trying to remember.
Is it the guy from the Barracuda, Warsawski? David Warsawski?
Is that name sounds familiar?
Oh no, he's a former NHLer who just retired. I'm thinking of something.
Is it maybe a name? Like, I think Warsawski's right. Is the name maybe Ryan Warsawski or something like that?
Ryan Warsawski. Yes, Ryan Warsawski.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. But I think that Hagens at 4 to San Jose makes a lot of sense.
So he's going to get the Shane Wright treatment.
Exactly. Yeah, so to speak. Okay. Thoughts on Polyphia? Oh my goodness, we got a music question. I don't mind Polyphia, honestly. I don't really listen to them. I'm going to see them live in Toronto next year as they open for System of a Down, and that's going to be awesome. I'm super excited about that. I mean, the thing about bands like Polyphia, so for anyone who's not familiar, Polyphia is kind of like the OG, well, not the OG, but like one of the most accessible, quote unquote, like guitar, like math rock guitar bands. And they have all these, they're like Animals as leaders, but like more kid gloves in a way. Like there's a lot less like almost like thrash metal influence. It's more like melodic, so to speak. I like Polyphia, but I don't really listen to them because I think it's a little obnoxious. And it's just like I like music that changes a lot. Like I grew up on Dream Theater, for example, and I love that band to death, and I think they're just one of the best of all time. But Polyphia just seems like way too busy for me a lot of the time, and a lot more like, look what I can do band rather than like writing music. But as far as like instrumental bands go and like technical prowess, they're very good. I'm not huge on them, but they're fine, and I'm excited to see them live because I think they'll put on a really good show. But yeah, I mean, that's thoughts on Jan Hoven. I like his game. His production's kind of meh, but he's cheeky. He's a cheeky power forward with potential. So I don't want to just jump straight into points, but I don't think there has ever been a Finnish junior hockey league player that gets drafted at that kind of production level that ever has worked out. Like, even the ones who largely play in that league all season and score a ton don't work out, right? I'm thinking like Lassie, what's his name?
Thompson?
No, Lassie Thompson played in the WHL.
Oh, okay.
I keep thinking of Lassie Alanen, but he's Elite Prospects guy, which is like Lassie Alanen is the EP guy, but
who is the guy?
Levi Altonen, that's the guy I'm thinking of. He scored a ton in his draft year. Like Ville Koivunen was one of the better guys at that level, but even he played at the top level a little bit here and there. Haven just seems like a guy who's a middle six player in that league and like is okay at it. I will be very curious to see him at the World Junior. But I was never really blown away with him. I went and looked at him after, I believe it was Sam Cosentino put him in the first round, and I just kind of went, I don't know. I didn't make much notes on him at the Hlinka Gretzky, and I don't know. He's not on my list, and he doesn't really excite me enough to put him on there right now.
I'm just trying to remember, who's the guy in 2021 in the Finnish Junior League that played with Ville Koivunen? There was another guy who got drafted, I think. Is it Samu? Or no?
Samu Tuomala.
Or was he the same year?
Ville Koivunen having a good season in the AHL. 18 points in 23 games. That a boy. But yes, that was Samu Tuomala.
Okay.
Tuomala. Yeah. And I like Koivunen a lot more.
Yes.
And I feel good about that. But yeah, Koivunen is probably the only one, and he hasn't broken the NHL yet. Yeah, Samu Tuomala. Okay.
Is he with Philly? Or where? I think he's with Philly,
yeah,
right?
He's in Philly. Yeah. I think he's cracked the NHL a little bit, but he's mostly been in the AHL, I think.
Okay.
Will, what was the hype surrounding Tavares in the draft? Oh my God. John Tavares, man. I mean, he's from Toronto, really. He's from Mississauga, which is the biggest suburb of Toronto. And basically where AJ lives.
He's from Oakville, right?
It says he's Mississauga. It says on his hockey DB.
Okay.
Mississauga. But regardless, I remember John Tavares because John Tavares is a few months younger than me, which is, oh my God, that's horrifying. But yeah, John Tavares is a few months younger than me. And so I was around in the hockey world at that age and aware of what was going on because he's in my age group. And I believe that he got exceptional player status the year after. No, he was the second one to get it after they made it up for Sidney Crosby. So Sidney Crosby was the first one because they made it up for him. And then John Tavares came around the next time around. And I remember John Tavares, like, think about it this way, right? Imagine a 15-year-old kid, coming into the OHL. And he was a September 20th birthday, right? So he played in the OHL for 4 full seasons before he went to the NHL, which is crazy. But he was 15 years old, just had turned 15, playing for Oshawa, and scored 45 goals that year. And I remember people were like losing their mind at this 15-year-old kid scoring that much in the OHL, which had never happened before, obviously, because players that age weren't allowed yet. And then he goes out the next season and scores 72 goals in 67 games. And he wasn't even draft eligible until 2 seasons after that. So people, oh, right, you're right. They made it up for John Tavares, right? Crosby didn't get it. And because Crosby didn't spend as much time in the queue, I think they created it for Tavares. I think you're correct on that. But anyway, and I do remember as well when Tavares went from 134 points that year as a 16-year-old to 118 in a few fewer games because he went to the World Juniors that year, I believe. People were kind of like, oh, maybe he's like, was he overrated? Like, did he just have a really great season and just pop too early and blah, 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 whatever. And I mean, obviously that wasn't true. But the hype around him was insane. I mean, the 2009 draft, it was him and Hedman and Matt Duchene. And I remember that at the time, and I think looking back, I mean, AJ, if you had to pick between John Tavares and Victor Hedman, do you think there's a kind of a level of discussion there?
I think you probably, it's hard. I think you probably go Victor Hedman.
It's close, though, I think. I think you could make the argument for either, but I probably would go with Hedman as well.
But yeah, it was.
And I remember Duchesne made a late push that year. I remember if you go and watch the tape from that draft, and when John Tavares was selected, TSN had a 3-shot going: one of Hedman, one of Tavares, and one of Duchesne. Because there was talk at the time that maybe Duchesne is the guy that goes first overall. But I mean, the whole time for the Islanders, it was Tavares, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
No way Hedman was going to go, supposedly, from what I remember. But it was crazy at that time, especially being in Toronto at that age, and like the buzz around a guy from Toronto being like, that good was, when that happens, right? With McDavid, it was the same.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, everybody turns into a GTHL fan, and it's kind of weird, but it's pretty wild. Even Quinton Byfield, there was a bit of that. Like Byfield, when he was in AAA, like people were like, "Oh my god, this 6'5", 15-year-old is dummying everyone." Anyway, in what way is Slafkovsky worse than Byfield? I mean, I think Byfield is just quicker and a better defensive player than Slafkovsky by a pretty wide margin. I think Slafkovsky is smarter in terms of moving the puck and passing it and getting it around the ice and being a complementary player. But Byfield, I think the pace of his game, the defensive intensity, there's a lot in his game that I think works a little bit better than Slafkovsky.
I think he's probably more offensively gifted too. Yeah.
Depends on which discipline, but
like playmaking wise,
a discussion. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't seen that much of Slafkovsky this year, so I can't comment too much. But yeah, I don't know. I just always have been way more drawn when Byfield is on the ice to him than Slafkovsky when he's on the ice. I like what Slafkovsky brings to the table, but yeah, our thoughts on him are very well documented.
But we like him. We do like him.
Yes, we do. Just not as much as a lot of people in our comments for the last year. Panarin was the main left winger when Lafreniere was drafted. Kopitar was the main center when Byfield was drafted. I mean, this isn't against you, but that's a dumbass way of thinking about it. Like just because you have an elite player at a specific position, doesn't to me, it was about like the ethos of the team, right? Like we have Panarin, therefore we should draft the winger. I mean, Lafreniere has not turned out like Panarin at all in the time since. They're very different players. And Byfield, to me, it's the point was more about like the style of play for the team and like what they seem to value, right? Like Lafreniere always struck me as a weird one for the Rangers because they had guys like Keandre Miller coming through the ranks, and Ryan Lindgren was a guy getting elevated through that program, and they went out and drafted Braden Schneider later and Brennan Othman and all these guys, and Lafreniere isn't really like that. So yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't have said dumbass because you're not a dumbass, but I think that it's just an interesting thing to think about. Of like at the time, I felt like there were two guys that I thought were pretty comparable, and they both kind of went where I don't know if they. I mean, I think Byfield is a good LA King. Like, I'm not saying he's bad, but but also Lafreniere was a weird Ranger.
And to this person's point later on, because they mentioned that they feel like it should have been Byfield at 1. Lafreniere was seen as the guy, like the clear number 1 guy. Yeah. So it wouldn't have been like, setting aside the way Will felt at the time, the way the world felt was Lafreniere above everybody else. Do you remember that the Detroit Red Wings fans freaked out about getting the 4th overall pick and getting maybe the best player in that draft? Maybe. And I say maybe because there is also Tim Stützle, but I think both those guys are pretty equal. And those are the 2 best players out of that draft so far. And I don't think you can really dispute it.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
And now there's only now there's only two lottery or like two picks that are
Yeah.
like for the lottery or whatever. Like two picks that can move. So dumb. Make
When
make all of them movable. Way more fun.
Make every pick movable. That's what. Yeah.
No.
That's
Make the top 16 picks all movable.
Exactly. Yes. Lottery pick all 16 picks. Every single one of them. 100%.
More fun that way.
Yeah, exactly. Thoughts on Ben Danford? Is he the next Chris Tanev? I mean, that's again a very, very high bar. I think Danford is more likely a middle pair, third pair, defense first guy. I think he's a smart defender. He gets around the ice well enough. He's capable.
He's gonna fit in with what the Leafs are doing now.
Assuming they don't fire the coach by the time he gets here and they have a completely different look on the game by then, yes. Thoughts on this season of Survivor? I mean, we can blast through this real quick, but I think it was one of the best of all time. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was wire to wire, amazing. Last night's episode, no spoilers, was 10 out of 10 finish. I mean, that was just I was on the edge of my butt for the whole time.
Will was messaging me. He's like, I don't think they're gonna give it to the right person. I'm like, no, they're giving it to this person.
Yeah, they got me. They
didn't get me because of all the editing clues after a certain point.
Right.
After a certain point, and I told you why in the edit. And I won't say what it is because then people will look for it when they're watching. But
yeah,
there was symbolism in a shot. I saw something that made me. It just confirmed it even more because I was very confident in this person winning for many weeks. Ever since Sierra got the boot, who I thought was gonna win. Then I pivoted to the next person, and I was not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's great. Highly, highly recommend watching it if you don't. Opinions on Ivalo Gatyansky. I Googled this guy. He's too big. 5'7", 123 pounds from Bulgaria, playing for the Milton Keynes Thunder of the third division of hockey in Great Britain, or England, I should say. Too big. It's never going to work. He sucks. Easy peasy.
Jeez.
Say you had to pick a superpower. Which would you pick? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very vague question because in the sense that you could go with really anything.
But like, if I got to pick a superpower, if some doctor was like, what could you be? You could be super strong. You could be invisible. You could be Spider-Man. You could be whatever. You could be the Flash. Actually, I probably would be the Flash. I'd want like super speed. Give me the Flash. Not because of, who portrayed him and everything. That's a little strange. But the Flash itself, I think, is a cool one because part of me wants to say invisibility, but the Flash essentially is invisible if you think about it, right? I could just run around in circles if I'm the Flash and no one can see me. So I'm invisible. But I also am the type of person who likes to go on adventures and like explore the world and stuff. So if I can just run there and like run across the ocean and stuff because my feet are going so fast and run up a mountain or whatever, I could go anywhere I want at any point ever. And I feel like that would be really fun. And if I wanted to commit crimes, I could escape.
Wow.
I could just run through a wall or something because force equals mass times acceleration. And I mean, I've got a decent amount of mass on this body, but like,
okay, nerd.
I could get accelerating and blow through any surface you put in my way. So Fort Knox, here I come. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I really don't know what I'd want. It's tough.
Super speed for me.
Because it's a tough choice. I feel like the area I'm lacking in the most is strength. I am not a very strong, like a physically buff person.
Mm-hmm.
So
me neither.
Maybe I'd go with that, but it kind of feels like a lame answer. Nah, you know what? Super smarts. There's always more to grow. Always more room to grow. So.
Okay, where are we here? Oh my goodness, what band is the best of all time? Jeez, talk about a loaded question.
Ooh.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by best.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, there are bands that I like. I like bands that are like groundbreakingly weird. and like different, right? So I don't know if it's like I'm not a huge Rolling Stones guy or like all these big bands that are the biggest of all time. I'm not
So Will's
super
not a
into that.
Beatles guy, is what he's saying.
Not really. I mean, I like the Beatles, but like I don't listen to them, right?
I do. I
I grew
actually
up
do a
on
little bit.
you're gonna laugh, but I grew up on U2 and
Okay.
I've seen them live. I've seen them live like 3 times and they're they had an era where they were unbelievable. So I'd say that's the closest thing to a good answer.
I just figured it out. I know how to fix
What?
Nashville. Just cancel U2 concert. That's it.
Oh, yeah. I thought we made that joke already, but yes, you're right.
Come on. How stupid can people be? Like, this is the answer's right in front of them.
Yep. I mean, I mentioned them earlier in the show, but probably the band I've listened to the most in my life is Dream Theater. And the first couple of records, the first 2 or 3 records or 4 records are, if you're into like really weird genre crossing metal music, it's worth it. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, someone mentioned System of a Down. They're a good one too.
Who was your favorite band when you were a kid? Because I have a couple
Okay.
that are.
When I was a kid,
I have a couple funny ones.
I mean, this is gonna sound weird, but like the Alan Parsons Project, I listened to a lot of them when I was a kid. The Police,
I don't even know the Alan Parsons
the
Project.
Police,
Yeah, I know
U2. My dad is a huge U2 fan, so we had a lot of U2 going on in the car in the house. I did grow up in a musical household, which I'm thankful for. So there was a lot of music flying around in my house. So there's a lot of that.
For me, it's kind of funny. I was a huge Green Day fan as a kid.
Oh yeah. Green Day was.
But then I got big into Simple Plan because I loved Scooby Doo as a kid, and they did the song, and then I just got into Simple Plan.
That's showing our age difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
And my dad worked in the music industry, so he worked at EMI Music and Universal Music. So like I got to interact with a pretty obscure band called These Kids Wear Crowns, who
I know that band.
Yeah, no, I got to meet those guys a couple of times and hang out with them, so I really liked them as a kid. But I also got to meet Nickelback when I was a kid, so I was big into Nickelback too. Chad Kroeger called me the coolest kid he'd ever met when I was 9 years old.
Oh, no wonder your head is so big.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
I get it.
So all that right.
Chad Kroeger knows what he's talking about.
So no, he doesn't. Clearly not.
Yeah. No. I also will throw Cassiopeia out there. Nice Japanese jazz fusion band from the 70s and 80s. They're great. Would Higgins or Misa work better for the Habs at center? I mean, take it. I would say Misa because he's a little better, I think. But yeah, I think Misa, honestly. I don't know. Which defenseman do you see the Canucks targeting? I don't know. I didn't even know they were targeting one. But I don't know.
Like, we talking in the draft, or are we talking?
I don't know, but we also have to kind of race through the rest of the show here because I also got to run. I got a meeting in 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
What have you thought watching Quinn Beauchene this year? He seems confusing. Yeah, I like him. I think he's got a lot of potential, but I don't think he really knows what he is yet. Like, I think he's still feeling it out. I've liked him every time I've seen him. Mobile, smart defender. Kind of like Alex Carrier, honestly. Now that we watched him today, there's a bit of Alex Carrier to Quinn Beauchene. Thoughts on Daniil Kiselov? I don't know who that is. So I'll put him on the list. Unless I do know who that is. I do not. Oh, he's a goaltender. Okay, sure. He's probably bad.
Who's asking the question? Is it David?
No. What was the biggest cartoon at the time when you were a kid? Oh my God. Well, when I grew up in the time when cartoons became more geared towards adults. And that was a weird time to be a kid. There were people in my school whose parents forbade them from watching The Simpsons. And then Family Guy happened. And then kids were banned from watching that show. And then South Park came. And that was a show that was definitely banned for a lot of kids. I honestly, in my upbringing, The Simpsons was still pretty new when I was born and growing up. It was the golden era of The Simpsons when I was like 6 or 7. So I was a Simpsons kid. And my parents watched it with me. They love it. They love it too, right? They, at the time, at least, we watched it together. And Family Guy was with my mom, especially. She was kind of hesitant. She's like, I don't know if you should be watching this. And then we watched a couple together, and the episode where at one point Stewie's head kind of goes fully sideways and goes, or the one where they do the reality show in their house and they replace Meg with the blonde girl, and backstage in a confessional, Stewie says, "It's not that I want her to die, it's that I just want her to not be alive anymore." Is one of the funny. My mom laughed at that for like 3 straight days, and she's like, all right, this show's cool, we can watch it. And then with South Park, I was banned from watching that, but of course I did. And I went to a friend's birthday party and we watched the movie, and if you've seen Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, it's not for children. And then my mom found out, and she watched a couple episodes with me, and then she was hooked on it. She liked South Park at the time. So I was lucky enough to grow up in a family where it's like you watch these edgy cartoons, and at least my parents were like, okay, like a little level-headed about it. But there were people, man, who were like, I got in trouble because my parents didn't know I watched South Park and I watched it, right? Like that's the era I grew up in. But I also grew up in the era of like the prime Saturday morning cartoons, right? The 90s X-Men cartoon was a big hit for me. There was a 90s Batman cartoon that I really liked a lot. Dexter's Laboratory. The last cartoon that was pretty big that came out when I started getting a little older that I watched a little bit was SpongeBob. I was big into Recess. You and I watched an episode of Recess not too long ago. You know, the Bonky episode. And
Bonky.
Yeah,
and
Bonky.
No.
Yeah, Bonky's a good one.
I love
that.
For me, when I was a kid, though, it was Johnny Test. That was mine. I loved Johnny Test.
That's a good one.
I loved Jimmy Two Shoes as a kid.
Yep.
But some of them, like my dad was also worked at Breakthrough, so Jimmy Two Shoes was a Breakthrough production, so that was part of it.
Fairly Odd Parents was another one for me growing up. That was another good one. I grew up with a ton of cartoons in my life. That's what raised me and turned me into this. Anyway, okay, I think we got to get out of here.
And I was looking at in the trade. I don't know, like Marcus Pettersson maybe, but like they have tons of like Vancouver's fine on the left side though, so I'm still looking around to find things, but I'll try and get a better answer for you on next time around.
Monday. Okay. Thoughts on Jaeger being captain of Canada? Cool. That's it.
Jaeger bomb, baby.
Jaeger bomb. All right. That's going to be it for today. Thanks for joining us. We got to run. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for dropping by. We're going to be back Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with our World Junior Hockey Championship preview episode where we'll go through each team and, obviously take your questions. So stay tuned for that and get in there. And we'll see you then. And before we go, you can definitely check all of our sponsors out in the description. We got Fantrax down there, or Fanatics, not Fantrax. Fanatics, where you can use our affiliate link or this QR code to scan the QR code to get a kick. We get a kick. Oh my God. You can scan the QR code and we get a kickback on anything you buy in the store. Also, Puck Preps Hockey is down there to get your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. And of course, Scouching.ca to get access to our Discord server, exclusive NHL prospect data, and plenty of other cool stuff like exclusive content. You can get that with the subscription over there. And if you want, you can buy some merch at Scouchware.com or send us a billion cups of coffee on buymeacoffee.com.
You won't.
Do it.
I dare
Cowards. You won't. Yeah, you won't. Elon Musk, I know you're watching. You watch everything all at once because you don't do your job. Anyway, that's going to be it. We'll see you later. Party on. Have a safe weekend.
Yep.
Happy Christmas. That's about it. See you around.
Leaves for Cup. Good night. Well, good afternoon.